So in a hyper-connected world where, basically every step of a trip is pre-planned, optimized, and mapped out by that smartphone in your pocket.
Right, the glowing rectangle that solves everything.
Exactly. What happens to your experience when you completely remove the element of surrender? Like, if you eliminate all the friction from your travels, do you lose the actual essence of why you left home in the first place?
I mean, that question really cuts straight to the core of the traveler's dilemma, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because it forces you to ask, like, are you traveling to actually encounter the world in all its unpredictability? Or are you just verifying that the curated images you scroll past on some app actually exist in physical space?
Right. Just checking boxes on a list.
Yeah, exactly. When you strip away those digital safety nets, travel stops being a checklist, and it becomes this really profound exercise in self-discovery.
And to really explore that philosophical shift, we're jumping back into our source material today, documenting the incredible, completely analog 2001 journey of Marcy, this Japanese backpacker.
A truly wild journey.
Wow. It really is. So if you've been following along in our previous deep dives, he just spent weeks hitchhiking all the way down the length of Japan, right, from the snowy north of Sapporo all the way down to Kyushu.
Which is a massive accomplishment on its own.
Oh, massive. But now he has officially crossed the sea by ferry. He steps off the boat onto foreign soil, and he has arrived in Busan, South Korea.
And setting the scene here is so critical because, well, the contrast to how you might travel today is just staggering.
Yeah, paint that picture for us.
Okay, so it's the year 2001. Marcy has just stepped off a boat into a country where he does not speak a single syllable of the language.
Nothing.
Nothing. He has absolutely zero internet access in his pocket. And perhaps most significantly, he is carrying this monster backpack that weighs 30 kilograms.
30 kilograms. I mean, just visualize the sheer physical toll of that for a second. That is over 65 pounds strapped to his body.
It's brutal.
It's like giving a piggyback ride to a fully grown golden retriever, but strapped tightly to your shoulders and hips. Your spine compresses, your center of gravity shifts.
Every single step requires deliberate effort.
Yeah, and on top of that, he is running on absolute zero sleep.
Oh, right, the ferry ride.
Yeah, the sources highlight that he was kept awake all night on the ferry by this angry Korean man who was just pacing and shouting.
That is just the ultimate rough start.
Right. So imagine standing on a noisy, unfamiliar port dock. The sensory overload of a new country is hitting you, your body is just aching, and your singular primal mission is narrowed down to one objective.
Find a cheap bed before the sun goes down.
Exactly. Find a bed.
It's a state of pure primal survival mode. And, what makes this particular deep dive so fascinating is how traveling in this completely analog era forces a traveler to adopt a vastly different mental framework.
Right, because you can't just Google it.
No, you can't. The inability to control your environment through an app essentially forces a traveler to embrace this Eastern philosophy of, well, letting go of the ego.
Like going with the flow.
Exactly. When you cannot bend the world to your will, you have to mold yourself to the contours of the world.
Well, let's follow him right into that survival mission. So Marcy gets off the boat, he's exhausted, and he spots a tourist information center.
A classic first stop.
Right. He walks in hoping to find a quick map and a place to stay, but the infrastructure there is just not built for him at all.
No, it's not.
The only maps available are these glossy brochures loaded with ads for luxury hotels and high-end resorts.
Which are totally useless for a gritty backpacker. I mean, he heard from a friend back in Japan that a budget room should cost somewhere around 10,000 to 20,000 won.
Right, and just to give you a clear baseline, 10,000 won in that era translates to roughly $8 for a night.
Right, so he's staring at brochures for luxury suites, realizing the official infrastructure of the city basically cannot help him survive on an $8 budget.
And his cognitive load is already maxed out, right? From the physical burden and the sleep deprivation.
Oh, totally. So he actively avoids trying to pantomime his way through complex questions with the Korean-speaking staff. He just doesn't have the energy.
No energy at all. So he needs a shortcut.
Yeah.
And his radar spots one. He sees a familiar face walking toward the center, the one Japanese businessman from his ferry who helped him fill out his customs declaration card earlier.
Oh, what a stroke of luck.
It is. Now, this man is clearly not a backpacker and is definitely not staying in an $8 room. But he is carrying the holy grail of 2001 travel.
He's got the book.
He has a physical copy of the Chikuno Arukakata, the Globe-Trotter guidebook.
Yeah, in the Japanese travel subculture, this book was an absolute institution. It was basically the encyclopedia of survival for budget travelers.
It really was. Think of it like a rare loot drop in a really challenging video game.
Yeah.
You're exploring this dark, obscured map, and you find that one specific item that suddenly clears the fog of war.
Illuminates all the hidden paths.
Yeah, the paths and the safe houses. So Marcy runs up, politely begs to look at the book, and just frantically scans the hostel pages.
He's on the clock.
Exactly. He spots a place charging exactly 10,001. He locks the route into his memory, hands the book back, and literally takes off.
And this is where the physical urgency of the situation amplifies.
Yeah.
Like almost immediately. As he's navigating these unfamiliar streets toward this potential safe haven, he hears Japanese voices behind him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he turns to see a group of 4 Japanese college students, likely on a graduation trip, and they're carrying their own guidebook and scanning the buildings for a place to stay.
And Marcy's reaction here is just a brilliant display of the solo traveler's mindset.
Oh, he wants nothing to do with them.
Absolutely no part of their dynamic. He's a solo wanderer seeking a deep personal experience, right? The idea of being trapped in a shared room with a loud, energetic group of tourists from his own country is his absolute nightmare.
It defeats the whole purpose of the trip for him.
Exactly. So, with 65 pounds compressing his spine, he physically shifts into high gear. He starts speed walking through Busan.
Just zooming past them.
Yeah, it becomes a literal sweat-inducing race to secure the cheap room before the college group can claim it.
He completely embraces the pure physical hustle. I mean, he pushes through the exhaustion, wins the race to the hostel, and pantomimes his way through a price check with the owner.
And the owner confirms the 10,001 rate.
Right. But the relief is super brief because the owner then leads him to the actual room.
Yeah, and keep in mind, in 2001, guidebooks give you the address and the price, but they do not provide user-uploaded photos of the interior.
No Yelp reviews back then.
None. So the host opens a door that is located literally right next to the front entrance of the building, and the space inside is roughly 3.5 tatami mats large.
Which is
Tiny. Tiny. For context, that is essentially the size of a standard walk-in closet or a small prison cell. You could stand in the middle and touch opposite walls simultaneously.
wow.
And it is glaringly obvious that this space was originally designed as a staff storage closet, which the hostel hastily converted to just squeeze out extra rental cash.
Now, if you picture that scenario today, an $8 staff closet by a noisy front door sounds like an absolute disaster.
Oh, today a traveler would be furious. I mean, they would demand to speak to management. They would immediately draft a 1-star review on their smartphone.
They'd be posting photos of the cramped walls to social media to complain about being scammed.
Exactly. But Marcy's reaction is entirely different. He is absolutely thrilled. He drops his bag and feels this profound sense of victory. So how does this shift in perspective challenge the modern assumptions you might have about what comfort actually means?
Well, I think it reveals a really profound difference in cultural and philosophical expectations. Because, that modern instinct to leave a 1-star review is a highly Western, ego-driven reaction.
Right, it's transactional.
Exactly. It stems from the transactional belief that because you paid money, the physical environment must bend to accommodate your personal expectations. You expect a raised bed, you expect square footage, aesthetic pleasure, whatever.
Sure.
But Marcy approaches this with an entirely different sensibility. He replaces his ego with pure, immediate pragmatism.
He simply evaluates the reality of what is right in front of him.
He doesn't impose some fantasy onto the physical reality of Busan. He evaluates the tiny closet based purely on his immediate physiological needs. And what he discovers is that the floor of this closet is equipped with ondol.
Oh, right, the traditional Korean underfloor heating system.
Yeah, and the mechanics of ondol are just deeply woven into Korean culture. Historically, it involved drawing smoke and heat from a wood fire through flues beneath the thick masonry floor. Yeah, but 2001, this was mostly modernized with heated water pipes, but the cultural result is exactly the same. The floor itself becomes a massive radiant heater.
That sounds amazing after a long day.
Oh, it is. Because the floor is the primary living space, it's kept immaculately clean. Shoes are strictly forbidden. So Marcy looks at this space and realizes the brilliant utility of it.
Right, it's warm, it's clean.
Perfectly clean, wonderfully warm. He can stretch his aching back flat on the solid surface, and he has privacy from those college students.
The ultimate win.
He surrenders his preconceived expectations, adapts to the local architecture, and finds deep restorative comfort in the simple, radiant heat. It is just a masterclass in that Eastern philosophy of going with the flow.
So he secures his safe house, drops the 30-kilogram burden, lies down on that heated floor, and just passes out. Fast forward a few hours, he wakes up around noon, the exhaustion has faded, and he is finally ready to document his arrival.
And this is amazing.
Oh, this brings us to what has to be the most intensely 2001 visual detail in all of our source material.
Oh yeah, the camera situation.
Yes. So Marcy wants to take pictures of the neighborhood, but he doesn't own a digital point-and-shoot camera.
No, instead he relies on a Sony VAIO laptop.
A full-sized, early 2000s clamshell laptop.
Just incredible.
And this specific heavy model happened to feature a built-in camera mounted above the screen. So just picture the physical comedy of this. Marcy is walking through the bustling, narrow, chaotic streets of Busan.
Right.
And every time he sees something interesting, he has to stop, unzip his bag, pull out an entire laptop computer, flip the screen open.
Hold it out in front of him like a heavy tray.
Yes, like a waiter.
Yeah.
And then press a key to snap a low-resolution photo.
The sheer physical awkwardness of that action really highlights the heavy, obtrusive nature of technology at the time.
It's hilarious. But the narrative quickly transitions from the physical weight of technology to the psychological weight of connectivity.
Right, because after wandering the streets and taking his laptop photos, Marcy decides he needs to let his friends back in Japan know that he survived the rough ferry crossing.
Of course.
Yeah.
So he heads back to that tourist information center because it houses the single, highly coveted public computer connected to the internet.
The one computer.
The one. He walks in fully intending to send a brief, reassuring email. But there is a Russian tourist currently occupying the keyboard.
Oh, the classic cyber cafe standoff.
Right. So Marcy stands behind him, patiently waiting his turn. 10 minutes go by. The Russian tourist is just clicking away, deeply engrossed, showing absolutely zero signs of wrapping up his session.
It's the universal agony of waiting for shared public tech.
And Marcy's response to this roadblock is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
He doesn't tap the guy on the shoulder, he doesn't pace around the room in a state of growing anxiety, and he doesn't start aggressively hunting down an internet cafe.
No, he simply gives up.
He gives up, he turns around, walks out the door, and totally abandons the idea of sending the email.
And, the underlying psychology there is the ultimate paradox of modern hyperconnectivity.
How so?
Well, today, constant connection is marketed to us as a comfort, but it actually functions as a relentless psychological exhaustion.
Yeah, that's true.
You're never fully inhabiting the space you're in, right?
Yeah.
Because a fraction of your attention is just permanently tethered to your social circle back home. But in 2001, communication was not an assumed right. It was a scarce, highly conditional resource.
So when the Russian tourist blocked his access, the friction of the situation essentially forced Marcy into an involuntary digital detox.
Exactly. By accepting that friction, by simply shrugging and saying, well, I guess no one is hearing from me today, Marcy was forced to remain entirely in the present moment.
He had no choice.
Right. The tether to his past and his community in Japan was physically cut by the circumstances. He could no longer outsource his attention to a screen. He was compelled to be 100% present in his immediate physical reality in Busan.
The universe effectively used a stubbornly slow tourist to enforce a state of deep mindfulness.
That's a great way to put it.
But, rooted entirely in the physical reality of Busan, Marcy is suddenly confronted with a very immediate physical need. His brain might be disconnected from Japan, but his stomach is completely empty.
He's starving.
He hasn't had a proper meal since before the ferry ride. So he's walking the streets, looking at local diners, and he's feeling deeply intimidated by the culinary friction.
Yeah, he only really knows the word bibimbap, and he has no idea what these local spots might serve him or how to even order it.
So he's actively seeking to reduce his cognitive load. He needs a baseline of absolute safety.
And what's safer than fast food?
Exactly. Towering in the distance is the ultimate glowing beacon of safety and globalization, the golden arches of McDonald.
The universal symbol of you know what you're going to get.
He makes a beeline for it. But amusingly, even the safety net of a multinational corporate franchise presents a layer of friction at a foreign country.
Oh yeah, it goes wrong immediately.
He walks up to the counter, fully expecting to just point his finger at a laminated picture of a burger on the counter menu. But there is no menu on the counter.
Right, and he notes in the sources that counter menus were the standard in Japan, so this sudden absence of this crutch just totally throws him off balance.
He experiences a brief, intense moment of panic at the register. He can't speak Korean, and he can't point at a picture. He's just frozen there until the cashier sighs, recognizing the bewildered traveler look and gestures up above and behind her.
Look up, buddy.
Yeah, the only menu is the massive board high up on the wall. So, crisis averted, he looks up, spots a familiar item, and orders a chicken tetsuta sandwich.
Now, I know you might see a contradiction here.
I do, and I really want to push back on his logic for a moment here, because look at what happens right after this meal. Marcy eats his safe, predictable McDonald's sandwich. His stomach is finally full.
Right.
He walks out of the restaurant and begins strolling down the main commercial streets of Busan. And suddenly, the sources note, he starts feeling a creeping sense of emptiness and disappointment.
Yeah, the mood completely shifts.
The main streets are immaculately clean, the fashion is highly modern, and the crowds look remarkably similar to the crowds he left behind in Japan. He feels let down because the city doesn't feel, quote-unquote, Asian enough for his tastes.
Right.
So, is it not completely hypocritical that a traveler seeks the absolute safety and predictability of a corporate McDonald's, but then immediately gets depressed that the city outside isn't gritty and chaotic enough to satisfy his authentic backpacker fantasy?
I mean, on the surface, the hypocrisy is undeniable. But if you analyze this through the lens of human psychology, it's actually a perfectly logical progression.
Okay, how?
It maps directly onto Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh, interesting. Walk me through the mechanics of that.
So consider the sheer cognitive overload Marcy had been under since arriving, right? He was bearing 65 pounds of weight, navigating severe sleep deprivation, struggling with a foreign language, operating entirely without a map.
Just constant stress.
Exactly. His nervous system was essentially running a constant threat assessment loop. And in that heightened state of friction, your brain simply does not possess the excess bandwidth required for, high-level cultural appreciation or philosophical reflection.
You just need fuel.
You crave familiar calories just to regulate your nervous system. That chicken tetsuda wasn't just lunch. It was a psychological base camp.
Oh, I see. It provided a temporary sanctuary where the rules of engagement were universally understood.
Exactly. Once his base survival needs were fully secured, he had his warm closet to sleep in. He had familiar food in his system. His nervous system finally dialed down the threat response.
That makes total sense.
And that is the exact physiological moment his higher-level spiritual curiosity was allowed to unlock. Because his immediate survival was no longer in question, his brain regained the capacity to seek out the unknown. He was finally ready for the friction of the quote-unquote real experience.
That reframes the McDonald's trip completely. It gave him the psychological fuel required to actively want to get lost.
And he absolutely does get lost.
He does. So he's walking down this clean, sterile main street, feeling deeply uninspired by the modernity. But then he makes a deliberate choice to veer off the main drag. He wanders down a narrow, shadowy back alley, and instantly the entire atmospheric energy of the city shifts around him.
He steps directly into the authenticity he was searching for.
He walks deeper into this narrow corridor, and right in the middle of the road, practically choking the walkway, is a chaotic, noisy cluster of street food stalls.
Yes.
People are crammed shoulder to shoulder, eating while standing up, surrounded by plumes of steam, harsh shouting, visual that stops him dead in his tracks as the background, because these ancient-feeling, intensely friction-filled street stalls are operating in stark contrast, situated directly in front of a massive, ultra-modern, multiplex cinema building.
Right, and the mechanics of why that specific contrast exists are crucial to understanding South Korea at that exact moment in time.
Yeah, what's going on there?
You're looking at the phenomenon of rapid urban leapfrogging. In a lot of Western cities, urban development happens sequentially and gradually over decades.
Quite a slow build.
But in rapidly globalizing Asian economies, especially South Korea, which was rebuilding in the wake of the late 90s financial crises, development was explosive.
So things just popped up overnight.
Basically, yeah. Foreign capital and massive conglomerates would buy a plot of land and just drop a 21st century hyper-modern multiplex directly into a neighborhood that was still functioning on a mid-20th century street vendor economy.
Wow.
The city didn't bulldoze the old to build the new. The two eras simply collided.
The 20th and 21st centuries are literally forced to share the exact same stretch of sidewalk.
And that aggressive, unpolished collision represents the very soul of travel. It's the visual manifestation of a society caught in aggressive transition.
Yeah.
And for a traveler like Marcy, who cross the ocean on a journey of deep self-exploration, witnessing a culture that is dynamically shifting, full of glaring contradictions and raw life. That is the ultimate reward.
Because the sterile, predictable Main Street offered absolutely nothing to learn from.
Exactly. The messy, loud, complicated back alley offered an entire education.
It is just incredible to watch a traveler be stripped of every modern convenience and expectation in a single day.
Hmm.
I mean, we followed Marcy from the physical exhaustion of dodging college students to secure a heated staff closet to the physical comedy of wielding a laptop like a camera on a crowded street.
Such a great image.
And then we saw him find necessary refuge in a familiar sandwich, only to realize that true spiritual fulfillment lay in the chaotic, noisy back alleys he had to deliberately force himself to discover.
Well, and if you bring the focus back to the core question we opened with, what happens to your experience when you remove the friction from your travels?
Right.
Marcy's first 24 hours in Busan provide a really profound answer. Every single moment of genuine realization, every amusing story, and every deep cultural insight came directly from friction.
It all came from the struggle.
Yeah. Not knowing the language forced him to rely on a stranger's guidebook. The lack of a digital connection forced him to be intensely present. The culinary intimidation eventually pushed him to seek out that stunning juxtaposition in the alleyway.
So true.
When you overplan your trips, when you allow your smartphone to smooth out every rough edge and translate every interaction, you inadvertently sanitize the experience.
Here's the magic.
You lose the serendipity of the unknown. You lose the vital opportunity to erase your ego and simply let a foreign city happen to you.
The friction isn't the obstacle to the journey. The friction is the entire point.
The friction is where the memory is actually made.
And the friction for Marcy is only going to intensify from here. We're going to continue following his analog journey across Asia in our next deep dive, and the narrative is about to take a sharply surreal turn.
Oh, I can't wait for this.
Without giving too much away, he ends up wandering into a local Busan game center, and the encounter he has inside is intense, it's hilarious, and it's deeply revealing of the local subculture. You will definitely want to join us as we unpack that experience.
It is a remarkable look at the underground social dynamics of 2001.
It really is. But until then, I want to leave you with a direct challenge to ponder. Think about your own travel habits. Think about the last time you took a trip, whether it was a flight across the globe or just a drive to an unfamiliar neighborhood in your own city. When was the absolute last time you allowed yourself to be genuinely, completely lost without a glowing screen in your hand to instantly save you? And what hidden parts of yourself might you finally discover if you deliberately left the map behind, embraced the friction, and just looked at the street?